Well, the 26 years iteration of the Time of the Writer Festival has started at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and it features more than 100 authors, poets and wordsmiths. The program kicked off on the 16th of this month and ends on the 21st. It showcases a host of events and online literary webinars. Celebrated writer Dr. Sindiwe Magona is this year's featured author. She joins me now to discuss this further. Dr. Magona, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us this morning. Let's start with being the featured author. How did you feel?
How does what feel? Sorry, I missed something. I was talking as you were talking.
Okay. Well, you are this year's festival's featured author, and were asked, of course, to give the keynote address. Talk to us about that. How did it feel? How did it go?
Well, I was in conversation with Zuki Swawona, and that takes off the stress from the writer being interviewed, because it is the job of the interviewer to come up with interesting questions. And she was superb. And so and from all feedback I've received, everything went well. All went well. I've had just all positive feedback.
Yeah. And
about being the featured veteran author, it's a reminder, as though one could forget, that, one has been blessed. I've been blessed with longevity. Yes, I've lived a long life, but as a writer, I'm not new, but I haven't been writing as long as one might expect, because I started very, very late. When my first book came out, I was 49 years old. So where at 80 people could reasonably expect that I should have been writing for 60 years and more. I have been writing for just over 30 years. So I feel highly honored to be recognized this way.
Yeah. When we think of other, illustrious black female writers, the likes of Toni Morrison, who also started her writing career a little later on in life. I think she also started in her 40s. When she talks about the reason behind her writing was she realized that there were books that she wanted to read that had not yet been written. And so the sort of, calling or imposition was placed on her to write those books. Would you say something similar happened to you? What was the drive behind putting that pen to paper?
For me, thank you for that question. For me, the impetus arose around the then, discussion, if you want to be polite, about, during the time of Black consciousness, where there was this, question, why are white people writing about us? And I listened and I agreed, and then I reasoned. You turn questions over and over in your mind until the realization came upon me that white people writing about me don't stop me writing about me. In other words, that challenge, that question became a challenge around, so why don't you write about black lives? If white people are writing about black lives, why don't you write about black lives? Of course, there was the issue of I didn't know how to write. But I realized that was the challenge. We didn't write because we felt we didn't know how to write. And somebody said to me recently, among the many hurts, of apartheid on black lives was the belief, the lack of belief in yourself, really. You grew up believing you were nothing, you could do nothing, you believed in your littleness. So we have to overcome, I'm still battling that, overcoming my lack of belief in my ability.
Oh, wow. So
It's an ongoing struggle.
Yeah. So my next question is twofold, because you managed to overcome the sort of lack of belief that you're talking about today. But at the same time, I think you also had the challenge of having to decide what to write about. And talk to me about maybe, that struggle of on the one hand, having to overcome the lack of belief in oneself, but even in dealing with that, still being empowered enough, being an agent of your own kind of destiny enough to say, these are the stories that I am going to write about.
The question will be answered, at great length when my new book comes out. It's a book of essays from Wits University Press, and the title is I Write the Yawning Void.
Mm.
And there is in 3 parts. In the first part 1 is coming into writing, my journey into writing, which answers a lot of the questions you are asking.
Mm.
And then what the hard topics I deal with, such as, the deep hatred in our blood as South Africans for one another, and poverty, how we choose. I don't say we do, but the title is Do Not Choose Poverty. Don't come and say people don't read the essay. Do not choose poverty. This is somebody who comes from poverty. I know, been there, done that. Do not choose poverty. And also, things such as, we are all racists. Those are the hard topics in part 2. And then the last part is writing about my writing, which, talks about the writing I have done, why I have done it, the reason, because most of my writing, when I reflect upon it, except one book, Chasing the Tails of My Father's Cattle, all my books, all the writing I do is provoked out of me by circumstances. I'm angered, I'm disgusted, I am saddened, something happens, and I react and I write.
Right. I want to ask you about, the state, I suppose, of literature and literary skills in South Africa today. A couple of years ago, an astonishing report came out to say that about 75% of, our 10-year-olds, for instance, read without comprehension. A couple of years later, post the COVID-19 pandemic and the effects that had on our schooling and teaching programs, that percentage has increased. So we're in a worsened position than we were before. Are you at all concerned about how much reading South Africans are doing, particularly South African youths, and the kinds of pieces of literature that they're exposed to?
I am so concerned. I'm going to make a proposition which came to me very, very recently, like the meditation I was doing before this. We need, ipulo. I don't know how, it's ipulo. Go and find the translation, IPHULO. Ipulo, something that goes to the whole nation, similar to the one, an all-out cry we had when COVID hit. We need something similar that comes from the center of our being as a nation and goes and touches each and every child, each and every parent. Do this now. And we keep track as we did for COVID. If we could do it for COVID, why can't we do it for our children? And right. They are reading. Every child should be reading so many books a year. Are we keeping track, South Africa? We must. It's the only way to do this. We must come together. And I don't mean me, as a nation. Village South Africa, come together, select the kind of literature the preborns should be listening to, and pregnant mothers go to clinics. This is what your child should be listening to. Where are those stories? Where is the impetus? Where is the drive for the children in utero to be listening to those stories? at age 1 or before they get to, first year of life, second year of life, and on and on and on. The relevant literature is there. We must find it or found it. Find it or found it and then inflict it on everybody. We cannot inflict reading on children if we do not carry the disease of reading. We must read as grown-ups and read to our children and encourage them. They will not thrive. They cannot thrive if we do not drive the reading, the love of reading.
Absolutely.
We must. It has to be a drive that is really strong and reaches each and every child.
Right.
If we leave any child behind, we are doomed.
Right. Well, Dr. Magona, unfortunately, we do have to leave it there, but your words, I think, will reverberate for all of our listeners. Find it or found it. Somehow we need to inflict this disease of reading on our children. Thank you so much for your time.